For my uncle who isn't with us anymore, who passed away some time ago. Buddy, wherever you are, this one's for you. Hello once again, and welcome to the Prince Magnum channel, where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome once again to a look into our past, and we're going to take a look at old video games. That's right, folks, old video games from the Atari 2600 to the original NES library, maybe all the way up to the Sega Genesis and maybe the Super NES. Who knows where this will take us? When you travel back in time and you talk about video games from the 8-bit era, there's something to be said about composers that were so masterful at their task of making music. They would take a series of bleeps, put them in a specific order, and it would make the most epic tunes you would ever hear. For example, the tune you're hearing right now is from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game for the NES. Which game is that? This one right here. That's right, folks. That particular game right there is one that my uncle and I used to play together. Now, I know it's a one-player game, but we had a way that basically I would play as one, and we would go back and forth, and we would just hand off that one controller. And in later years, I nearly beat the game myself. I've never really got super good at it. It takes people with some serious dexterity to be able to beat that game. And of course, today we have speedrunners that have found all the neat little glitches and have different ways and techniques to beat it. And the records are pretty awesome. But for those of us who enjoy those old video games, just playing them as they were back then, doesn't matter what the time it takes. It's just so much fun to play. Here's another great one another great tune that you even have heard on another YouTube channel, and this one I used to play with my little brother. One of my little brothers. We used to sit around this little bitty teeny tiny television playing the NES, and it was Al Unser Jr.'s Turbo Racing, and this tune right here was playing. Ironically enough, this particular tune, whenever I'm driving Project Spirit down the road at a high rate of speed, I still hear that tune playing in my head. It's kind of spooky. Thanks a lot, Nintendo, for messing up my adult years. Thank you very much. But beyond that, I mean, who could deny one of the most iconic games that has really come into pop culture today? It wasn't so much thought of as exciting back then, but today it is like at the forefront and considered one of the most iconic video games ever, the original Batman for the NES. And this particular tune you've heard here on the Prince Magnum channel several times. This tune right here. this tune now has a name. I never knew it had a name, but I always knew it as the Stage 1 tune of the Batman game. And now today people call it Streets of Desolation. And that makes sense. I could see that, but and today, even now, people with guitars and everything actually go so far as to play this. So what gives, okay? For the record, that wasn't the greatest tune on that video game. If that's as far as you got, this one right here was my uncle's and mine. It was our personal favorite for that video game, and it's this one right here. That one in particular was our favorite, and sometimes we would even go so far as to get to the end of the stage, kill ourselves, and so we could listen to it again. Maybe Nintendo could have made some money on these old video game tunes. So what gives? Why in the world are these, how in the world do these songs stay so ingrained in video game culture today that we just can't get it out of our heads? It's the gameplay, the excitement of it. And I mean, it was like every time those composers really did, in every sense of the word, try to bring with what technology they had at their hands to the forefront and make those games sound as epic as you possibly could. Because in the old days, with the Atari 2600, this was about as exciting as it got when it came to video game music. So you could see today, now that we have such, today even Nintendo keeps recycling some of their old 8-bit era music, like what is known as, the minor circuit for Punch-Out. Well, here's how it used to sound. And they have just recycled it and turned it into a much more epic song, but the original tune is still there. Here's the reality of it, folks. Some of these games that were, great gems in the NES library, what made them the gems was because of the music. And yeah, it was just a bunch of bleeps put together to sound like music, but it was like epic. And to never take away from the people that wrote the music, I mean, let's face facts. If you talk even about Mega Man was one of the greatest games of the 8-bit era, and more in particular, Mega Man 2 was the ultimate of those games. Capcom really had their finger on the pulse of what music should sound like in the 8-bit era. For example, I mean, you're not even at the boss battle. You're trying to get to the final boss battle, and this is what you hear. It's so, it gets exciting, and it gets, you're like, wow, 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 it is such an explosion of excitement, okay? So, Princess Faye and I have a debate, and the debate is that even today, with as awesome as the 8-bit era was for some of us early gamers, and how exciting the games were at the time, because that was cutting edge then. And for many people, the 8-bit tunes still hold true today in their excitement. The ultimate question in this is, would a more modern day video game get away with using the 8-bit era music? And many of us that come from the old video game world will say yes, it will. She says no, it won't. So, as a little bit of fun, let's go ahead and take a more modern day game, say from the PlayStation 2. It's not modern, but it's pretty modern by 8-bit standards. And let's take this particular clip and put some 8-bit music to it and see what you all think. I hope you all enjoyed this video. This was an exciting, again, trip down memory lane for me to help you all see what video games were of the 1980s. If you got to live it, it was exciting. If you didn't get to live it, well, thankfully now retro game consoles have come back out and you all can enjoy what we enjoyed back then. Because today, it's not exactly cutting edge, but it's still fun to play. So, there you have it. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and follow me on Facebook. Since there's no such thing as Twitter face, you don't need to worry about it. If you have the opportunity, be sure to check out the Prince Magnum channel on Patreon at Magnum_Prince at patreon.com. And if you're able to donate, always appreciated. And if you are so inclined, maybe you might become a monthly subscriber. $1 a month makes you a member of the High Mileage Club. All the money that goes into that Patreon account goes right back into Project Spirit and Project Lena. Something to be said about that. And, as always, get out there and work on a project. I don't care what it is. Just do something with yourself. Remember, idle hands and a creative mind make horrible bedfellows. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet. Do something special for them today. And, as always, for all of you out there, if no one out there has told you that they love you, Prince Magnum does. God bless you, and have a happy 24. Thank you.
Good night, ladies.